I'm Claire Young, 28 years old, and for most of my adult life, I've been the one holding my family together financially. I paid their bills when they fell behind, covered rent when someone couldn't manage it, and stepped in whenever their lives spun into chaos. Last July, during my sister's 30th birthday dinner at an Italian restaurant in Boise, Idaho, I honestly believed I was doing something generous, something meaningful that might finally change how they saw me. I slid a sealed envelope across the table toward her, my chest tight with a strange mix of nerves and hope. Inside that envelope was a promise, $6,000 to cover her rent for the next 6 months. I had spent weeks saving for it, convincing myself that this time things might finally be different. She tore open the envelope without hesitation, pulled out the note, and scanned it quickly. Then she smirked. "You think this means you're forgiven?" she said, her tone sharp enough to slice through the room. Around the table, my mother, my aunt, and a couple of cousins burst out laughing. The sound hit me all at once, loud and humiliating. I stood there frozen for a second, my face burning and my hands starting to tremble. Forgiven. All of this was still about a stupid gift I gave her 10 years ago. I had been paying for that mistake every single time I opened my wallet for them. Without thinking, I leaned forward, grabbed the envelope back from her hand, and said quietly, "Then never mind." The laughter around the table stopped immediately. The room went silent for a moment before the shouting started. Within 5 minutes, the entire table was yelling at me, and deep down, I realized nothing between us would ever be the same again. Before we get deeper into this story, tell me what time it is where you are right now, and what city you're listening from. I'd honestly love to know how far this story travels. I stepped outside the restaurant into the warm summer evening, the air thick with the constant hum of Boise traffic moving through the streets. My hands were still shaking from the argument inside. My sister's voice echoed over and over in my head. "You think this means you're forgiven?" Forgiven for what? For a mistake I made when I was 18 years old. Back then, Jessica was 20 and already used to getting whatever she wanted. I thought she'd appreciate a simple birthday gift. I had worked part-time at a coffee shop and saved enough money to buy her a bright red scarf I thought matched her style perfectly. I wrapped it carefully and felt proud handing it to her. When she opened it, she laughed in front of everyone and said it looked like something pulled from a thrift store's reject bin. I apologized again and again, embarrassed and desperate to fix the moment. But instead of letting it go, she clung to that memory like it was proof of something terrible. Over the years, she brought it up constantly, always using it as a reason to demand favors, money, or my time. That cheap scarf turned into a permanent debt in her mind. For years, I had been the family ATM. When my mom forgot to budget and her electric bill was about to be shut off, I paid it. When Jessica blew her paycheck on clothes and couldn't cover her rent, I stepped in. When my aunt's car broke down and she couldn't afford repairs, I handled that too. 2 years of doing that, thousands of dollars gone from my account, and not once did anyone stop to thank me. I thought offering $6,000 to cover Jessica's rent would finally change the dynamic. I hoped maybe it would heal the bitterness she still carried from that old scarf incident. But the way she laughed at me across the table snapped something inside my chest. When I walked back into the restaurant after stepping outside, the atmosphere around the table had turned tense and chaotic. My mom leaned forward immediately, her voice sharp with irritation. "Claire, don't do this. You're making a scene." I took a slow breath, trying to study the pounding in my chest. "I'm done," I said loud enough that everyone at the table could hear me. "No more money, no more rescuing anyone. I've given enough already." Jessica's expression twisted instantly, her eyes narrowing as if I had just insulted her personally. "You're selfish," she snapped. "You think you're better than us just because you actually have a job?" My mom jumped into the argument quickly, her tone softer but dripping with guilt. "Claire, we're family. You can't just abandon us like this." My aunt muttered something under her breath about loyalty and responsibility, though I barely paid attention anymore. Their voices piled on top of each other until it felt like a wall of accusations crashing into me. Selfish, ungrateful, cold. I had heard every one of those words before, whenever I hesitated to open my wallet. I looked directly at Jessica. She sat there with her arms folded and that familiar smirk on her face, like she had already won the argument before it started. "You've taken enough from me," I said calmly. "It's time you figure things out yourselves." My mom gasped dramatically, gripping her napkin as if she needed something to hold on to. "Claire, you don't mean that," she said quickly. "We need you." need me. What they meant was they needed my money. Jessica leaned closer across the table, lowering her voice so it sounded almost threatening. You owe us, Claire. You always have. Once again, she brought up the scarf, tossing it into the conversation like it was evidence of some unforgivable crime. But by that point, I was completely exhausted from carrying guilt that never should have been mine. The restaurant suddenly felt smaller. The air around the table seemed thick with their judgmental stares. I grabbed my purse, pushing my chair back so it scraped loudly against the floor. I'm not your solution anymore, I said firmly as I turned toward the door. Jessica shouted after me immediately. You'll regret this. My mom's voice followed a moment later, softer but desperate. Claire, please think about what you're doing. I didn't turn around. The door swung shut behind me, muffling the chaos of their voices inside. Standing in the parking lot, my chest still tight from the confrontation, I realized something strange. I felt lighter. For years, I had been trying to make up for a mistake that wasn't even mine anymore. That red scarf wasn't worth everything I had sacrificed. They weren't worth it either. I got into my car and started the engine. As I pulled away from the restaurant, my phone buzzed on the passenger seat with incoming messages. Jessica was probably sending more insults. I didn't even look at the screen. For the first time in years, I could breathe without feeling like someone was waiting for my next paycheck. I had given them money, time, and pieces of myself for years, and their response was to laugh in my face. That was the moment I decided it was over. I didn't know what my life would look like next, but I knew one thing with complete certainty. I wasn't going back to that table, and I wasn't going back to their endless demands. I drove home through the Boise streets, city lights streaking past my windows, while my mind replayed everything that had happened. Jessica's smug grin, my mom's dramatic tears, my aunt whispering judgments from the corner of the table. They had pushed me further than I ever thought possible, and I was finally finished playing their game. A week after I walked out of my sister's birthday dinner, my phone still wouldn't stop buzzing. I was lying across my couch in my Boise apartment, trying to focus on a design project for work, but notification after notification kept lighting up my screen. Jessica was the main source of the messages. My sister sent text after text without stopping. Claire, you can't just cut me off. I need help with my car payment. Another message followed seconds later. You owe me after that stunt you pulled. My mom wasn't any better. Her messages were longer, filled with guilt and dramatic language. Claire, we're struggling right now. You're the only one we can rely on. How could you do this to your own family? I stared at the screen, feeling my stomach twist. They acted like I had betrayed them somehow, like the years I spent paying their bills meant nothing. Then Jessica sent another message that pushed me over the edge. I saw this cute jacket online. It's only $200. Send the money. A jacket. She didn't even have a job and was still living off the money I used to send, and now she expected me to buy her clothes too? I opened my banking app, transferred $1 into her account, and typed a short message. Enough for now. My finger hovered over the send button. Then I hit it. Let her figure out what that meant. My mom called minutes later, her voice shaky but sharp. Claire, what's wrong with you? Jessica's in trouble. You can't just send her $1. I gripped the phone. My patience gone, Patricia, I said, my voice cold. I'm not a bank. I told you I'm done. She gasped like I'd slapped her. You're breaking this family apart, she said. I hung up, my heart racing. Breaking the family. They'd been breaking me for years. The calls didn't stop. Jessica left voicemails, her tone switching from sweet to vicious. Claire, come on, be reasonable, she'd say. Then, you're so selfish, you know that. My mom sent more texts, each one heavier with blame. We raised you better than this. I stopped responding. That every message felt like a weight, pulling me back to that restaurant, to their laughter. I'd spent years trying to fix their problems, thinking it was my job. Now I saw it clearly. They didn't want me. They wanted my money. A few days later, my boyfriend invited me to a family barbecue at his parents' house across town. I hesitated, still raw from the fight with my family, but I went. Their backyard was alive with chatter, the smell of grilled burgers and corn on the cob filling the air. Zachary, my boyfriend, squeezed my hand as we walked in. "You okay?" he asked, his eyes searching mine. I nodded, but I wasn't sure. His dad, Zachary's dad, was flipping burgers at the grill, cracking jokes about his secret sauce. His mom, Zachary's mom, set out plates, her smile warm as she waved me over. "Claire, grab a drink. Make yourself at home," she said. It felt strange, this easy kindness, like stepping into a different world. Then I met Zachary's sister Ava, a 22-year-old with a quick laugh and paint-splattered sneakers. She pulled me aside away from the crowd. "Zach told me what happened," she said, her voice soft but direct. "Your family sounds like they don't see you. That's their loss." I blinked, caught off guard. No one had ever said that to me before. Ava grinned, handing me a lemonade. "You're pretty cool, Claire. Don't let them make you feel small." Her words hit me hard, like a door opening to a place I'd forgotten existed. I wasn't used to being seen, not like this. We sat on the grass, watching Zachary's dad argue with Zachary about grill techniques, both laughing. Zachary's mom brought me a plate, piling it high with food. "You need to eat," she said, her tone gentle but firm, like she actually cared. Ava stayed close, asking about my graphic design work, genuinely curious. "Show me your portfolio sometime," she said. "I bet it's amazing." I smiled, my chest loosening for the first time in weeks. This family, these people I barely knew, made me feel like I belonged. No demands, no guilt trips, just warmth. By the time we left, the weight of my family's texts felt lighter. Jessica and my mom were still out there scheming, blaming, but I wasn't their fix anymore. Ava's words stuck with me. Their loss. Maybe she was right. I drove home with Zachary, his hand on mine, the city lights flickering past. I didn't owe my family anything. Not my money, not my guilt. For the first time, I felt like I could choose who mattered. It was a quiet September evening when my doorbell rang. I was at home in Boise, sketching designs for a client, trying to focus after weeks of silence from my family. I opened the door, and there was my mom, Patricia, standing on my porch, her face tight with worry. "Claire, we need to talk," she said, pushing past me into the living room without waiting for an invitation. I stood frozen, my pencil still in hand. She sat on my couch, wringing her hands. "The bank's going to take the house," she said, her voice low but urgent. "I owe $7,000. You have to help us." Her eyes locked on mine, expecting me to pull out my checkbook like always. I took a deep breath, my chest tight. "Patricia," I said, my voice steady but cold. "I told you I'm done. I can't keep fixing your problems." Her face fell, like I'd betrayed her. "Claire, this is our home," she pleaded. "Your sister and I have nowhere else to go. You're our only hope." Our only hope. I'd heard that line before. Every time she needed cash. For years I'd paid their bills, thinking it made me a good daughter. Now I saw it for what it was. Manipulation. "You need to figure this out yourself," I said. "I'm not your bank." Her eyes widened, then narrowed. "You're heartless," she snapped. "After everything we've done for you." I shook my head. "You need to leave." She didn't move. Instead, she leaned forward, her voice softer, almost desperate. "Claire, please. This isn't just about me. It's about family." Family. That word used to mean something to me, but now it felt like a trap. I pointed to the door. "Go," I said, my voice firm. She stood, her hands shaking, and walked out, muttering about how I'd regret this. The door clicked shut, and I thought that was the end of it. An hour later, the doorbell rang again. This time it was Jessica, my sister, standing there with her arms crossed, her face twisted in anger. "You're really doing this?" she said, stepping inside without asking. "You're letting Mom lose the house?" I stayed calm, though my heart was racing. "Jessica, I'm not paying anymore," I said. "You both need to take responsibility." She laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "Responsibility? You're the one who owes us. You think you're some big shot with your fancy job looking down on us." Her words cut, but I was done letting them hurt me. She kept going, her voice rising. "You've always been selfish, Claire. That stupid scarf you gave me. You knew I'd hate it. You did it to humiliate me. That scarf again. 10 years later, and she still used it to guilt me." I stared at her, my patience gone. "You're 30, Jessica," I said. "Grow up." She flinched, but her eyes burned with defiance. "You're abandoning us," she said. "You'll be alone, Claire. No one will want you." Her words stung, but I saw them for what they were: desperation. She wasn't here for family. She was here for money. I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and sent her $2. I typed, "Time to grow up," and hit send. Jessica's phone pinged in her pocket. She checked it, her face wreathening. $2? She shouted. "You think this is funny?" I stepped closer, my voice low. "It's more than you deserve," I said. "Now get out." She stood there fuming, then turned and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. I sank onto the couch, my hands trembling. $2. It wasn't about the money. It was about drawing a line. For years, I'd let them pull me back, guilt me into giving more. But now I was done. Patricia's pleas, Jessica's insults, they couldn't touch me anymore. I'd spent too long trying to fix their lives, thinking it would make them love me. But love doesn't work like that. They didn't want me. They wanted what I could give them. I looked around my small apartment, the sketches scattered on my table, the quiet settling in. For the first time, I felt like this place was mine, not a bank for their demands. Jessica's words echoed, alone. Maybe she was right, but alone didn't scare me anymore. It was early October, and I was at my apartment in Boise, sorting through sketches for a freelance project. The silence was a relief after last month's chaos with my mom and sister. My phone had been quiet, no more demands, no more guilt trips. I was starting to feel like myself again, like I could breathe without their weight on me. Then my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Ava, Zachary's sister, standing there with a shy grin, holding a rolled-up piece of paper. "I made something for you," she said, her eyes bright. She handed me the paper and I unrolled it carefully. It was a drawing, a vibrant sketch of a Boise street, with bold lines and colors that felt alive. At the center was a figure that looked like me, standing confident, surrounded by light. "Ava, this is incredible," I said, my voice catching. She shrugged, her paint-splattered sneakers scuffing the floor. "I thought you'd like it," she said. "You're always creating cool stuff, so I wanted to give you something back." I stared at the drawing, my chest tightening, not with pain, but with something warm, unfamiliar. No one in my family had ever done anything like this for me. My mom and sister took, never gave, but Ava saw me, saw my work, and thought it mattered. I hugged her, and she laughed, hugging me back. "You're stuck with me now," she said, and I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. Later that week, Zachary invited me to his parents' house for dinner. I was nervous, still getting used to their warmth after the barbecue last month. When we arrived, Zachary's mom greeted me with a quick hug, her smile easy. "Claire, good to see you," she said, setting an extra plate at the table. Zachary's dad, William, was in the living room, flipping through a notebook. He looked up as we walked in. "Claire, got a minute?" he asked, waving me over. I sat beside him, curious. William was a retired architect, always talking about buildings and community projects. He opened the notebook, showing me sketches of a local park renovation. "We're planning a community center in that park," he said, his voice steady but excited. "New mural, signage, maybe a sculpture. I've seen your graphic design work. Zach showed me your portfolio. You're good, really good. Want to take on the design for this?" I blinked, caught off guard. "Me?" I said, my voice small. William chuckled. "Yeah, you. We need someone with vision, and I think you've got it." He handed me a folder with project details, timelines, budgets, concepts. It was real, not just a pat on the back. They wanted me, not my money or my fixes, just me. I spent the rest of the dinner half listening to Zachary's mom talk about her book club, my mind racing with ideas for the project. Ava sat across from me, sketching on a napkin, throwing me a grin when she caught me staring. "You're going to kill this," she whispered. Zachary squeezed my hand under the table, his quiet support grounding me. For the first time, I felt like I was part of something, like my work mattered to people who cared about me, not what I could give them. Back home, I spread Ava's drawing and William's folder on my table. The drawing was more than lines and colors. It was proof someone saw me for who I was, not what I owed. And William's offer, it was a chance to build something, to leave a mark that wasn't tied to my family's demands. I started sketching ideas for the community center, my pencil moving faster than it had in months. Murals with bold patterns, signs that welcomed everyone, a sculpture that felt like hope. I wasn't just designing for a park. I was designing for myself, for the person I was becoming. I thought about my mom and sister, how they'd tried to pull me back with their accusations. They'd called me selfish, heartless. But sitting here, surrounded by Ava's drawing and William's trust, I didn't feel like that person. I felt seen, valued, like I could finally step out of their shadow. Zachary texted me later, checking in. "You seemed happy tonight," he wrote. I smiled, typing back, "I was." For years, I'd tied myself to people who took without giving. Now I was building something new with people who believed in me. By December, Boise was wrapped in a cold snap, and I was deep in the community center project, sketching murals that would brighten the park. My life felt like it was finally moving forward. New designs, new purpose. Then I got a call from an old family friend, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. She sounded hesitant, her voice low. "Claire, I thought you should know. Jessica lost her apartment." My sister Jessica, now 30, hadn't paid rent since I cut her off. The friend said she'd seen Jessica working as a server at a diner downtown, juggling trays and looking worn out. "She's struggling," the friend said. "It's tough to watch." I sat on my couch staring at my phone. Part of me felt a pang. Jessica was my sister after all. But the other part, the part that remembered her insults, her demands, felt nothing. She'd laughed at my help, called me selfish, and now she was facing the consequences. I didn't call her, didn't text. I'd spent years carrying her weight, and I was done. The friend mentioned my mom, Patricia, too. "She's in a bad spot," she said. "Bills piling up, creditors calling." Apparently, Patricia had tried to reach me, leaving voicemails I never checked. I'd blocked her number after her last visit, when she demanded $7,000. Their problems weren't mine anymore. I leaned back, my sketchbook open on my lap. The guilt I used to feel didn't come. Instead, I thought about the community center, how my designs were coming together. The murals were bold with colors inspired by Ava's drawing. Bright, hopeful, welcoming. William had been checking in, offering feedback that pushed me to refine my work. "You're making this place special," he'd said last week. It was the kind of praise I'd never gotten from my own family. My mom and sister had only seen me as a solution to their problems, not someone with dreams of her own. A few days later, I got an email that stopped me cold. A local business owner had seen my portfolio online, thanks to William sharing it with his network. They wanted me to design branding for a new coffee shop opening in Boise. Logos, menu, signage, the whole package. It was a big project, bigger than anything I'd done before, with a tight deadline and a decent budget. I read the email twice, my heart racing. This wasn't just a job, it was a chance to build my name, to show what I could do. I replied immediately, setting up a meeting for the next week. Zachary came over that night, his smile wide when I told him about the project. "You're killing it," he said, pulling me into a hug. We sat on my couch, planning how I tackle the designs. He listened, asked questions, made me laugh with his terrible suggestions for coffee shop names. It felt so different from the conversations with my mom and sister, always heavy with demands. With Zachary, I could just be myself. No expectations, no guilt. I showed him my sketches for the coffee shop, and he nodded, impressed. "This is you, Claire," he said. "This is what you were meant to do." I thought about Jessica, picturing her in that diner, balancing plates, maybe regretting how she treated me. Part of me wondered if she'd ever change, if she'd realized she'd pushed me away, but I didn't dwell on it. My phone stayed silent. No calls from Patricia, no text from Jessica. I'd made my choice, and they were living with theirs. The friend had said Patricia was borrowing money from neighbors, trying to keep her house. I felt a flicker of pity, but it passed. They'd had years to figure it out. Years when I was there, pouring my savings into their lives. They chose to take, and I chose to stop giving. The next day, I met William at the community center site. The park was bare, dusted with snow, but I could see it finished, murals on the walls, signs guiding people in. He walked me through the progress, pointing out where my designs would go. "You're not just making art," he said. "You're building something for people to come together." His words hit me hard. I had spent so long trying to hold my family together, only to be torn apart. Now I was building something real, something that mattered. I went home and started on the coffee shop project, my desk covered in sketches and color swatches. The work felt good, like I was carving out a space for myself. Jessica and Patricia were out there struggling, but I wasn't their lifeline anymore. I was my own. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I had to prove anything to anyone. It was February in Boise, and the chill in the air felt like a fresh start. I sat at my kitchen table, a map of the Pacific Northwest spread out in front of me. Zachary leaned over my shoulder, pointing at a spot near the Oregon coast. "Cannon Beach," he said. "Great views, quiet town, perfect for a weekend getaway." I smiled, my pen circling the name. After months of work finishing the community center murals and launching the coffee shop branding, I needed a break. The idea of a trip, just the two of us, felt like a reward for everything I'd been through. Ava had already texted begging to join, but I wanted this to be me and Zachary, a chance to breathe and focus on us. Planning the trip gave me something to look forward to. We booked a small cabin by the beach, planned hikes along Haystack Rock, and even found a little cafe known for its clam chowder. Zachary was excited, his eyes lighting up as we talked about campfires and stargazing. "You deserve this, Claire," he said, squeezing my hand. I nodded, feeling a warmth I hadn't known a year ago. Back then, I was drowning in my family's demands, always saying yes to their problems. Now I was saying yes to myself. That shift didn't come easy. It took a year of standing my ground, of learning what it meant to set boundaries. My sister Jessica and my mom Patricia had pushed me to my limit, demanding money, guilt-tripping me, calling me selfish when I refused. I used to think family meant giving everything, no matter the cost. But walking away from their chaos taught me something different. Family isn't about who takes the most. It's about who lifts you up. Jessica and Patricia hadn't contacted me since December. No calls, no texts, no surprise visits. I heard through a friend that Jessica was still at the diner, saving for a new place. Patricia was renting a small apartment, scraping by. I didn't feel the guilt I expected. Instead, I felt free. Setting those boundaries was the hardest thing I'd ever done. Every time I said no to their demands, to their accusations, I was choosing myself. It wasn't about being cold or heartless like they'd claimed. It was about knowing my worth. Ava helped me see that with her drawing and her quiet support. William, too, with his belief in my designs. They showed me what it felt like to be valued, not used. I carried that lesson with me now, like a shield. I wouldn't let anyone, not my mom, not my sister, cross that line again. As I packed for the trip, my phone buzzed with an email from the coffee shop owner. The branding project was a hit. Customers loved the logos, and they wanted me for another job. I smiled, tucking the phone away. My career was growing, my designs leaving a mark in Boise. The community center was almost done too, with my mural set to be unveiled in spring. I wasn't the same Claire who'd walked into that restaurant last summer, desperate for my family's approval. I was someone new, stronger, surer, surrounded by people who saw me for me. I looked at the map again, tracing the route to Cannon Beach. This trip wasn't just a getaway. It was a promise to keep choosing myself, to build a life with people who cared. Zachary walked in carrying a bag of snacks for the road. "Ready for this?" he asked, grinning. I nodded, my heart full. "More than you know," I said. To everyone listening to this story, I want to share what I've learned. Family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by respect, by love, by who shows up for you. Setting boundaries doesn't make you selfish. It makes you whole. It's okay to walk away from people who hurt you, even if they're family. You deserve to be surrounded by those who see your worth, who cheer for your wins, not just your wallet. I spent years trying to fix my mom and sister, thinking it would earn their love. But love doesn't work that way. Find your people, the ones who lift you up, and hold them close. That's the family that matters. Thank you for sticking with me through this journey. It means the world to share this with you, to know you're out there listening. If my story resonates, if it makes you think about your own boundaries or the people you choose to keep close, I'd love for you to join me. Hit that subscribe button. Be part of this community. Let's keep telling stories that matter together.